The meeting will then be officially called to order. Please stand as trustee Bobby Blunt. As trustee Bobby Blunt leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Do the invocation first. Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessing upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators as we are assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
In accordance with Government Code Sections 551.001 through 551.146, this meeting is now called to order. There are no public hearings. Dr. Woods, Superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chumley and members of the board, as everyone in this room is very aware, it is the month of May, and that means there are lots of things going on for all of us. And I'll just try to hit some highlights of things that were really meaningful, I think, for our district and our community. And I'll start with thanking our patrons for their support of our recent bond election. As the members of the board know, that election passed by a margin at an approval margin of 68%, and work will begin soon on projects that range from new schools to significant renovation at old schools, and importantly, safety and security work at many of our schools as well. In fact, we've got a reimbursement resolution on tonight's agenda that will allow us to begin work on those projects before the first bonds in the 2018 series are even sold. So we are trying to move forward with that work as quickly as we can. I want to thank the teachers, the parents, and especially the students who participated in our Career and Engagement Expo. We actually divided that into 2 nights. We've had so much participation in the last couple of years, and we organized it roughly by feeder pattern with the hope that elementary age kids could really get a sense of the great things that happen in secondary schools and get a sense of what that work can look like. So a very successful event. I want to thank James and Elizabeth and all the folks in Fine Arts for the Standing Ovations event, where Fine Arts folks honored their own and some really successful teachers. It was kind of a red carpet event. James had his tux on, and it was very much an Academy Awards look-alike. It was a neat event. Thanks to Lock Hill Principal Danielle Fry and the dedicated group that supports the original Lock Hill. They celebrated their 150th anniversary the other night, and it was a really nice event. It was nice to see some folks, some really Northside alums who are really dedicated to our district, who were at the original school at one point, and to hear them talk about the school was really, really nice.
That would be the second school, not the original
right,
school.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, good point. Yeah. The older school, I guess. Thanks to, just briefly on it, Mr. Blunt may want to say something. I want to thank, from the staff perspective, Mr. Blunt, you and MITRE and all of those volunteers who help Solar Cars be so successful. 371 teams. It's become a full-day event. Even when the sun cooperates, it's a full-day event, and sometimes it doesn't cooperate. But thanks to you for that, certainly. I got to see the Together We Sing event, where you, on purpose, put 1,300 middle school kids in the same physical space and ask them to sing and dance. That is a truly remarkable experience. And I would be horrified to even consider it, but James and those people, they just pull it off, and it was absolutely inspiring. It was just fantastic. My wife commented about the number of boys who are in choir and participating in events like that, which was really nice to see. That's not something, for those that don't know, that's not something that's traditional in that age group at all. Last week we got to honor over 11,500 years of service to our school district at the retirement recognition ceremony, and that's one of my favorite events of the year. Mrs. Chumley may want to speak about the tiny homes showcase she and I got to judge one day last week. So we got to walk through it without the big crowd and really talk to the kids about their work at Construction Careers on the tiny homes. And I said to the group when we had the lunch break after the judging, I never know what's better, the work of the kids, you know, the design and the craftsmanship and all of that, or listening to them talk with passion about what they've done. You know, just great kids who have a plan and really appreciate the education that they've received there as well. I want to thank Gretchen Blay and the host school, John Jay and Jay Sumter, for STEM Fest on Saturday. Again, hard to know what was neater, the projects that the young kids were working on that had been designed by Jay Science kids, or listening to the Jay Science kids talk about what they love about, you know, their experience at the school. As board members well know, and I said to Ms. Chumley the other night, I've kind of blocked this out. I've set Memorial Day weekend as the demarcation where I have no choice but to start thinking about graduation. You know, so it's coming very soon. We'll walk over 6,700 students in that week and a half coming up, and that, all kidding aside, is a celebration for all of us, for everyone associated with our school district. That is a celebration. So I'm going to wrap up with Video Moment, and our Video Moment tonight highlights an 8th grade band composer named Aiden Ramos at Bernal Middle School.
One Bernal 8th grader knows how to hit the right note, literally. He's already accomplished something many musicians only dream about doing, and he'll soon be in the spotlight for his work. I'm Christina Eckert, and this is Northside. At Bernal Middle School, you can hear the sounds of hard work during rehearsal for the honor band and advanced orchestra. And if you watch and listen closely,
everyone ready? 1, 2, ready?
You'll notice something else. That's 8th grader Aiden Ramos leading these musicians. That song they're practicing, it's his. He composed it for his orchestra and band.
All you have to do is like the melody. You said you just make a melody. You can build from the bottom of the barrel up. So basically you can build from just that tiny melody. You add all these instruments later.
Aiden makes it sound easy, and he doesn't like to toot his own horn. But he spent months composing Tribute for Nights, building the melody and notes for every instrument in the orchestra and band, which means parts for the drums, cellos, trumpets, violins, and oboes.
He obviously has a gift.
And what makes this composition even more special, Aiden's only played an instrument for 2 years, and he began composing this year.
The reason I love music is just you can express yourself in so many ways that it just makes it so much interesting than just writing it down on a piece of paper and saying it aloud. You can actually have instruments express what you're feeling.
This song is his thank you to his school for the teachers and experiences during his years at Bernal. Teachers say it's students and moments like this that make it worth it.
The great thing about Aiden is that you give him a little bit, and he picks it up and he takes off with it, and he adds to it, and he's just kind of one of those perfect students that what you teach him, he learns, and he doubles and triples that information.
Let's try the trumpet solo at 45.
Aiden's song will be performed during Bernal's spring concert. As for future Aiden Ramos originals, it's not likely this will be a swan song.
There is some like wildness to it, like because you look at all the instruments, you're like, what am I gonna do? But at the same time, it's just wonderful to think of all the possible things you can do. There we go.
That's a look at what's going on around the district this week. Thanks for joining us for this video from Northside Media Productions. Northside is San Antonio's premier school district of choice.
So for those, I was just speaking for those of us in the room who may have exactly zero musical talent and couldn't even play one of the instruments, much less write the music. That's absolutely amazing. And what I find amazing when I saw this was that this teacher has been able to take what this child's gift obviously is and really enable and encourage him to pursue that gift. And that's an amazing skill for that adult to be able to do that. So really neat example of some great teaching. So, Ms. Chumley, that concludes superintendent's report.
All right. The next item in business on the agenda are board member reports. Dr. Harrell.
Thank you very much. I don't want to repeat a lot of what Dr. Wood said because so many of us were at those events, but I'll try to add just a little twist on a couple of those things. The Engage Career and, the Career and Engagement Expo, to see and hear 5-year-olds, I mean, they've only been alive for a few years, talk to you about what they've done with technology or what they've done in the back of their schools to grow certain hydroponic plants or whatever. I mean, they've only been around such a short period of time. I was blown away by how young they were. I mean, they were kids of all ages, but to listen to 5-year-olds talk about ways that they use technology as tools blew me away. And it was incredibly uplifting to see so many kids talking about their learning and the teacher standing back and letting the kids come to you. So their confidence levels were so high, but their wisdom and their intellect was even more heightened by the projects that they worked on. So kudos to everyone who put that together. And thank you for having 2 days. So now can we have 2 days in the spring and 2 days in the fall? No, just
No, ma'am.
I mean, honestly, oh my gosh, what a gift to kids.
No.
He said no. The standing ovation, what I loved, again, the kids that sang, oh, help me with the elementary school, saying I'm swamped, probably sang their hearts out to every educator in that room by the way they were singing I'm swamped, but it was in a positive way. It's a good time of year to be swamped, but they were singing their hearts out, and I love that song. It sounded like it was an original composition. But again, our kids did us proud, in addition to our fine arts folks that won the coveted awards, but just to be nominated among the fine arts folks in our district, I'm sure was an honor to so many. The last academics committee meeting we had, not the one today, but last month, we had a young lady, Lacey Greco, am I saying her name right, Greco, at Franklin Elementary School, who presented on how technology is used in her classroom. When she was leaving, I went to thank her, and she said, well, just come visit my kids sometime. So I did. She had 22 kids, and they were all doing a poetry unit. And of those 22, they were applying 17 different apps to write poetry to music, poetry as rap, poetry as stories, poetries with pictures, poetry. I mean, it was just multiplied by kids finding out which app worked for them the best and then sharing those. But only one kiddo sat at a desk. The rest were on the floor. They were in pods on squishy bags and balls and things like that, just really writing and writing and writing poetry. It was phenomenal. And again, she took a back seat to their learning and their expression of what they had learned and how they chose to show they knew about poetry. Solar cars, hats off to the board for we came in first in our heat, right? And we were only beat by someone who's an engineer, right? He was an engineer. So we did pretty good. Bobby was a great tutor. He taught us how to put a solar car together, and everyone added to it. And Grease Lightning, we'll have a repeat performance next year, I hope. But again, thanks, Bobby, and all of our supporters and teachers and families that came out that day. STEM Fest. I know Dr. Woods, your wife, was impressed with the number of boys that were singing in choir. I was impressed at STEM Fest with the number of girls that were represented throughout the John Jay Courtyard and in the cafeteria. Their professionalism and I say that because they acted very much like professionals when they were having us at their different booths and activities. I did get to ride the hoverboard, which is, if you haven't seen it, it's a board that one of this group of students created, and it's kind of padded, but they have a leaf blower that you push the button and it lifts you up. And so I was hovered back and forth, but again, the number of girls and the number of activities. We were there for almost a little over 2 hours, and we still didn't get to do all the activities that they had because time ran out. I think it went till noon. It was 9 till noon or 9 till 12:30, because then we raced over to the Story Fest at Stinson, and a former teacher at Rayburn is now a renowned author, Jeff Anderson, and his books are hysterical. But he read out loud, and I wish we could have just taken buses from STEM Fest over to Story Festival, because it was a nice, well-rounded day of math, science, reading, writing, and speaking. It was just a great day. But hats off to the library services department for hosting that, and our librarians that turned out, and then the wonderful authors that came. The 5K, the NEF 5K, was a wonderful event. I hope it made lots of money. It was wonderful running through the, they have that race where the mud race, which is a real, event, but we had our own little mud that day. And it was so nice to, again, have Dr. Wood's wife behind me, because she kept kind of creeping up and saying a few words, and I'm going to pass her up. I'm going to pass her up. Shoot. So I thank her very much for providing motivation to finish that race. But it was a great way to say, vote for the bond, vote for the bond. And people, I think, got a last minute reminder that, yeah, this is the last day you can vote for the bond. And again, thank you to our patrons, our families, our stakeholders for voting for the bond, because it will do so good to so many. So with that, I'll pass on the torch.
All right, thank you, Dr. Harrell. Ms. Freeman?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chumley. Just a couple things. There's been so many options for us to participate in district events in the last month, but a couple things. Bobby, thank you for helping us know what it's like to be a fifth grader and to compete in solar cars. I know you entered us into that race, and you gave us that challenge at the last board meeting, and we built this car, and we all had some participation in it, but you really got the feel for what it was like when some of us were standing around the table. It was very windy outside, and our solar car falls off the table and the wheel falls off before we're ready to race it. So we had the opportunity to try to figure out how we were going to get this wheel back on before it was time to race it. But it was fun. Thank you for that. And electrify your strings. That is something I was able to attend. Electrify your strings is something, Dr. Woods, I don't know how many years we've participated with that. Mark Wood actually coordinates that event, and he, if you all know, is the founder of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And so he came and with helpers. The kids have been practicing for a while on some of the songs, and in our Northside gym, the schools that participated, the elementary, middle school, and high school that participated were on the floor, and the kids, not like any other orchestra event that you've ever seen, the kids were sitting on the floor. They were dancing. It was a rock concert, truly, in the Northside gym. And if any of you all ever had any second guesses about how important that video board is. Well, rest assured, there was a lot of use of the video board. You had the opportunity of closely watching the kids on the floor singing. They gave out some scholarship awards as well, so it was quite entertaining. And CCA, just absolutely wonderful. Kids were very articulate, very excited about what they've done. So great times in Northside. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blunt?
You know, I'm still fascinated by that video with the 8th grader.
Prodigy.
All of us have been on the board for a while, and every time you just see something else like that, you just really say, wow, that is really, really fascinating. And I say that because it reminded me, when I was at John Jay, I was, in theory, a guest conductor for a winter symphony that they had. And, you know, realistically, I would just stand up there, the kids know what they were doing. But through that process, because I was practicing and going to the class and everything else, I learned how complicated orchestra and everything else is, let alone what that 8th grader did. So thanks for showing us that video. On the you've heard a lot about the solar car. This is the 22nd year. I do want to thank, that's just a really fine example when you take a small idea within Northside and how it makes it a big scalable and make it so that every kid can have that opportunity to participate. Y'all may have heard the history. We started with 16 kids at then Rayburn Middle School. On the tennis, oh yeah, you were there, that's right, on the tennis courts, that's right. I forgot you were there, Dr. Harrell. And, here we are 22 years later with over 1,300 kids from all the elementary schools and everything else. And the way to see the way elementary science engaged, the way that all the teachers and the mentors engage with the kids, as well as the community involvement. And then we have our sponsors like in addition to my company, the Air Force and their big involvement. And then Whataburger for a year for all the winners and everything else was really, really great to see. And thanks again, you heard about the board. It was great to see the board be able to participate also. And then the last one I had is, I know we mentioned the bond also. I'm a little bit repetitive with Dr. Woods, but that, from a board sake, that is really, really significant, not only from a community standpoint, but to feel comfortable that we're going to be able to move forward and continue to help out in our renovations and growth and have the confidence of the community and have our staff now do its thing is really great also. So very pleased to see that result.
Great. Thank you, Bobby. Ms. Reed?
Thank you. Talking about being repetitive, I think a lot of us were in a lot of activities. But I did want to mention that I missed the retirement event because I was at Incarnate Word for our community salutes, which is an event that honors those students who have been recruited to go directly into the military when they graduate. And there were 250 of them there this year. In years in the past, sometimes some of them have come and some of them have not. This year, I think all of them were there, plus a few who had gotten just into the recruitment process right after the program had been printed, and lots of parents. One of the people from Incarnate Word said they've never seen that many tables set up in that room. It was the biggest crowd they've ever had, and it's quite moving to see them going across the stage and have their hands shaken by the highest officer of their particular branch of the military, plus the president or the chairman of the chamber this year shook their hands as they left, and in his hand was their medal that they get. So it's done in a really kind of cool manner. And anyway, that was where I was that night, and I'm sorry, but I hate to see the retirees anyway. So. And I wanted to mention a little bit else about the Electrified Strings event. I remember going to it when it was at Brennan High School, which is where it first started. And I talked with James Michelka a little bit about it when I was sitting there with him during the show, because it is such a fascinating event. And those kids, they're actually dancing kind of and singing and playing, not singing, pardon me, performing at the same time. And everybody looks like they're having such a great time. And I said to James, boy, you don't have any room left down there to put any more kids. And he said, we're going to have more kids, and we're going to do it at the Dome. I said, oh, okay. So I guess he's working on that. The tiny homes were so cute. When I read in the paper the next day who the people were that bought them, I'm trying to figure out if you have ever been in the tiny homes. Most of the beds are on a loft. And one of the homes was bought by somebody for her father. And he said he's 75 and still alive and he loves it. And I'm thinking, how in the heck is he going to climb up there? And let alone down. Sometimes up is easier than down at this age. So, but the homes were certainly really cute this year and very, very well done. And I'm glad that they both sold. And hopefully the same thing will happen again next year. So let it go with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Yeah, no, I just wanted to, again, like they said, everybody's been saying we've been to most of some of the events. I didn't have a chance to attend the CCA tiny houses. I was occupied that morning, but yeah, I understand it was very well. So my congratulations to them and for their success, as well as for the Electrify Strings. I did attend last year when they were at the Aztec Theater. That was a really neat event. It was really great to see the kids be a part of that and to see them actually perform and use their instrument with movement. So it was really neat. Instead of just standing there or sitting there playing their instrument, they were performing. You should see them. So that was really exciting when I went. So I'm glad some of the other members got a chance to see that. I did want to just say, kind of echo what Bobby and Brian had said about the vote about the bond. I want to thank the voters. At the end of the day, it's their trust, it's their confidence in us, and in the district, in knowing that the district is going to do what they said. So, I really want to take this moment and thank the voters for voting for the bond, and we won't let you down. And I know the staff here at Northside, they're an excellent individuals with Brian's leadership. Thank you, Brian. And the reality is you put this bond on your back and you went to the community and you went out there along with the executive team, Leroy, everybody here, the executive team. You guys put the bond on your back, and I want to thank you for that. We wouldn't have passed it had it not been for you. So you take a lot of credit for this, and I appreciate that. I know the students appreciate that. So, with that, thank you. That's it.
I think they deserve a round of applause.
Yes.
Mr. Medina?
Just thinking, just real quickly, on top of everything that's been going, I mean, it's been a wonderful spring season. Congratulations to Warren softball, still in there, competing this Friday at Southwest. Just kind of in case you're not doing anything this Friday. Go support them. On top of everything. So on top of that, it's been a busy last couple of weeks, and I want to recognize the community members, the parents that are chaperoning, that are being there for all the events, the end of year PTA events, all those things that we can't do without the community. And it does take a village to raise a child. And so we do want to recognize that. And then going back to the bond, again, we can't speak how appreciative and how much our children are going to benefit in the long run. And so it pays dividends. The investment is well, and we thank you again.
All right, and I just got a couple of things. I had the opportunity to attend a dinner and then also the scholarship presentation with the Helotes Masonic Lodge. And it's really interesting. They give scholarships not only for for four-year academic colleges, but they also give scholarships for students that are going to a trade school or will be earning licenses or certificates. And they had been using schools that were for-profit, and they were discouraged by some of that because some of those schools started out and then they closed. And so they weren't aware of CCA, and they are very excited about partnering with CCA in relation to giving scholarships to the kids that are going for their licensure or their certificates into a two-year program. A lot of it will be with our community colleges. So I was really excited that we have a new partner now with CCA and that they're very, very excited about doing it. And the nice thing about the awards that the Masonic Lodge gives, Helotes Masonic Lodge, is that not only do they give a scholarship to the kids, but then the students get to pick an individual who has had an impact on their lives, and they give them a Lamar Award, which is a distinguished award that's given through the Masons. And it was neat because these were ComArts and O'Connor students that asked their teachers to come and be recognized. And the things they said about their teachers was just really, really impressive. And so I think we don't tell our teachers enough the impact that they make in kids' lives. And it was so obvious from the statements that these children made. And I think that it was just a really rewarding. And Bobby, they said to tell you hello. They remembered when you had been there before, but it was just a really rewarding evening to spend with them. CCA Tiny Homes. Okay, so what I found out is there's a gentleman from California who is creating a tiny home community in Sedona, Arizona, and he tries to come every year to buy our houses. Best quality, and I'm sure that he's making a tremendous amount of money when he takes them back to Arizona. But he's created a tiny home rental community in Sedona. So if we're ever out in that area, we need to go by. But he came this year. But Katie, I don't know. I don't know if he was one of the ones that ended up bidding. But I know that he was there, and he comes every year, and he wants to buy as many homes. I think he is one of the ones. As we produce. Anyway, I thought it was neat because he really talked about quality. The kids are so articulate. I followed this young woman around who was the electrical supervisor on the job, and she was speaking a different language. But she knew so much about the electrical process and about what they had put into that school. And I thought, and she's doing an internship with CPS this summer, and I thought they need to recruit her and hang on to her. Extremely impressive young woman, just really amazing. I thought I would like to go back to high school just to be able to go to CCA. The Lock Hill 150th anniversary was so much fun. Ernie DeWinney, who is the brother of a woman who I went to high school with, was 6 years old at the 100th anniversary and rode his horse to school. And he was there, and I just thought it was neat. And so many namesakes, our school namesakes, that either were students or taught at Lock Hill. I don't think we have another school that has that kind of history in relation to the individuals that have actually come from that school. That was pretty neat to see as well. I wanted to share with you the FFA banquet was held a couple of weeks ago. And so far, our FFA students have earned $750,000 in ag scholarships. And we had 6 students that won the sales scholarships, which is a $20,000 scholarship. And we have 8 that are in contention for the state scholarships as well. But $750,000, I was really impressed with those kids. On Solar Cars, Bobby, I wanted to thank you. Solar Cars is an amazing event, and you were the brains behind it, and we appreciate that. But I had a comment from a teacher at Leak. I was actually at a social function with friends, and one of the young women there was a teacher at Leak, and she came up and said how grateful they are that they can always call you and you have never turned them down for going out there and helping them get started. And even though they know that they can do it, they need that encouragement from you. And she said they've called you every year and you never tell them no. So I want to thank you for that piece of it, because I think that's a piece that all of us don't know you do as well in relation to Solar Car as well. But she was really bragging about you. I don't know how the kids did that day, but they were very appreciative of your assistance. You know, the one thing about the anniversary and the retirement, everyone retiring looked 10 years younger. It was amazing. And so I just keep thinking, there's hope. There's hope. And they were doing this and dancing across the stage. And I thought, where did all this energy come from? Anyway, to me, it was hope that there is a life after, after all of us quit working, that we'll get that energy back as well. I could use the 10 years younger. That would be beneficial. But lots of plans. We had teachers that are going to write books, lots of taking care of grandkids, travel, and one thing that was said multiple times was, I get to sleep late. Anyway, that was a really great event and done just extremely well. So Monica, thank you. And Barry, thank you for that. You do an excellent job for our teachers and that recognition. On the bond, there are so many people that contributed so much. Dr. Woods, all of our staff members that did over 300 bond presentations, trustees that block walked, set up, get out the votes, that, talked to neighbors and friends and people at church. But there's one gentleman that I would like to recognize this evening, and that's Barry Pettis. Barry, thank you so much for the work that you did in relation to the bond and answering the multitude of questions and the multitude of media requests that you got. I think that for your first bond effort that you just did an outstanding job. And I'm just so excited that it passed. And I think the other thing I took from it in talking to parents, particularly parents that are in those areas where they're going to get new schools, that they have such growth. But when you talk to them, they were supportive of it because they wanted all children throughout the district. It wasn't just their children, their area. They wanted all kids to be able to experience that feel of a new school and have the latest technology and have their campuses brought up to standard. And I think that that's just a really great statement about the community that we live in. And I think we're very, very fortunate. And sometimes, particularly by the end of school, we get tired and we may not appreciate that as much, but I think that's something that we all really need to think about and really recognize. We're in a great place. We're in a great school district, and there are people in our community that truly support us and support education. And that's it, other than softball and baseball teams. Congratulations for making the playoffs. I wish we had more than one going forward, but good luck to Warren, and I hope the girls, and it's a one-game series, against Canyon,
Locally?
I think. So let's give them send our moral support anyway. So thank you. The next item of business on the agenda is our recognitions for outgoing members of the 2017-18 Northside Education Improvement Council. If the board would gather in front, please.
Just the girls?
Good evening. I'm Janice Jordan, Deputy Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. The Northside Educational Improvement Council, or as we call them, the NEIC, is the district decision-making committee established in accordance with TEA code, and it has 40 members, which includes parents, business members, community members, campus folks, and select central office. The purpose of NAIC is to involve all of these members in giving us advice and recommendations on how we can improve our educational plans, goals, performance objectives, and instructional programs. Each member is elected for a 2-year term, or they're appointed by the Board of Trustees, and at the end of their 2-year term, they cycle off. So we are here tonight to recognize those members who we still have their names on databases, but we know they're cycling off for now. So at this time, we'll have you one at a time, and you'll go and get congratulated by that board. So Ruth Benitez from Myers Elementary. Matthew Jinke from O'Connor. Robert Martinez from Brennan. Belinda Schmidt, one of our community representatives. Jessica Williams from Stinson. We are bidding them adios, but they've been such stellar members. Robert was our famous, I was about to say infamous, but I think I'll say famous. He was our president and did a really phenomenal job for us. Are any family members in here that we may give you some claps as well? I think we have a wife. Yes. Yes, your sister, where's your sister? Thank you. This concludes my recognition. Yes.
I just want to, you just introduced Belinda Schmidt. Belinda just happens to be the mother of my son-in-law, also AKA to my grandkids' grandma. Anyway, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you guys very much. This concludes the recognitions. I didn't realize we'd gone 45 minutes. That's okay. It's nice things. Yeah, we are. Okay, the next item of business on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any trustees that want any items pulled? Seeing none, can I have a motion to come before the board? Ms. Reed?
I would move approval of consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we can approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it and motion carries. The next item of business on the agenda is citizens to be heard. Before I start, though, do we have any students here, college students with us? No? Okay. All right, on citizens to be heard, we believe citizens to be heard is important and meaningful, and we will listen to what you have to say. We value your opinions, although we are restrained from law by taking any action. Please use the podium, address your remarks to the board, confine your remarks to an NISD policy or practice, limit your remarks to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the board secretary, Mr. Lopez, will hold up the yellow card. At 3 minutes, the board secretary will hold up the red card. We ask that you wrap up your remarks at that point. You don't have to stop mid-sentence, but if you'll just bring your remarks to an end at that time. Please do not make any personal attacks on individuals. And audience, if you would please refrain from any applause or any negative response. Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Mr. Rick Galvan.
Hello, Honorable School Board. My name is Rick Galvan. I am a senior at Holmes High School. What I want to address today are the NISD students' concerns with gun violence on school campuses. As I'm sure you all are very aware of, hundreds of students walked out of their classes on April 20th, on the 9th anniversary of Columbine, in order to raise awareness about gun violence on school campuses and gun violence in general. At these protests, students advocated for our government officials at all levels to enact legislation that would prevent any other gun-related massacres from happening on school campuses and prevent gun-related massacres from happening throughout the entire country as well. And with another school shooting happening recently in our own state, in Santa Fe, I decided to take responsibility and bring up this issue with you all, because I feel it is important that we talk about this. Although I understand the school board cannot enact the legislation we envision, I ask you please support our efforts and begin pushing our local and state and federal government officials with us to address these unfortunately common tragedies and ultimately end them through common sense gun laws other countries have done. I also ask that you reach out to the organizers of the walkout, if possible, of course, as well as with the San Antonio March for Our Lives organization to meet with some of the students, like myself, who want to end this issue through working with our community leaders. Congressman Lloyd Doggett has held a town hall with the San Antonio March for Our Lives organization to discuss ways to prevent these tragedies from happening again. And Congressman Joaquin Castro will be holding a similar town hall this Saturday. I ask that some, if not all, of you attend this event to hear our concerns there, and eventually hold similar meetings like that so we may all may work together to combat this infamous trend that weighs heavy not only on our hearts, but on our minds on a daily while going to school. For my closing remarks, I want to thank you all for listening to my testimony. And I hope you understand the impact that this issue has on the students of Northside and the students of San Antonio as a whole. All we want is for our schools to be a safe environment for all students to grow, free from any thoughts of gun violence. And I believe the students, the school board, and our government can make that a reality by working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know what time or where the town hall is taking place?
It should be in the afternoon. I can write down a note later and give it to you all if that is something easy to do.
Thank you very much, and
problem.
thank you for coming to speak to us. I believe that was the only, all right. The next item of business on the agenda is facilities and operations. Mr. Sam Miguel.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Tonight we have presenting the GMP Amendment Number 1 for your consideration. And in order to proceed with the project and make use of this summer to perform very major work, this amendment is being proposed tonight. Amendment Number 1 consists of demolition of 3 buildings at Rayburn Middle School, the existing special ed building, existing gym/band hall building, and the existing library. The scope also includes site work, which is primarily a lot of utility work and things of that nature need to occur right before we start the major building. And the renovation of existing building designated as Building J to accommodate the special education students displaced by the demolition and such support offices as well. Displacement of the remaining classrooms will be accommodated in portables that have already been planned and coordinated with the campus administration. For your information, there are 2 other additional GMPs that will be presented to you at a later time. One is primarily for foundation and structural systems, and the last one would be for the actual buildings themselves, which are in the process of being bid at this point in time. Subsequent to the 2 amendments, we will bring those to you for recommendation of the amendment 2 and 3. And therefore, we are recommending approval of GMP and Amendment Number 1 tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, as chairman of the building committee, did you have anything that you would like to share?
Other than the fact that we did discuss this at the building committee meeting and everybody was in a concurrence, so I would move approval of the amendment as presented.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Amendment 1 building replacement GMP for Rayburn Middle School. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item of business on the agenda is business and finance. Mr. Rastellini.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. You might recall earlier Dr. Woods mentioning that we were bringing a reimbursement resolution to the board for consideration this evening. This is the particular item that he was referencing. Traditionally, what has happened in prior years, district has expended funds for bond-related projects prior to the issuance of debt to finance those projects. This practice has allowed the district to avoid interim financing costs and also to stay consistent with avoid project start delays. Funds expended for prior to debt issuance have been lawfully reimbursed back to the general fund through board-approved reimbursement resolutions. Prior to the 2014 issue, this was done on an annual basis, and in the 2014 issue, we started the practice of bringing one resolution for the entire bond referendum, and the resolution that you see crafted this evening has those same parameters. We're bringing that forward, and this will be the last resolution we'll need to do for the 2018. It has been written and is fully compliance with the Department of Treasury regulations. And at this time, the administration recommends approving the reimbursement resolution as it's presented. We have placed recommended motion language at each place on the dais this evening. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez, as chairman of the Finance Committee, did you have any comments that you'd like to make?
No, I don't. I'm just going to go ahead and move that the Board of Trustees adopt the reimbursement resolution as presented.
All right. Is
I
there
would
a second?
second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. The next item of business on the agenda is the purchase of buses with grant reimbursement. Mr. Galindo.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chumley, Dr. Woods, members of the board. Tonight, we bring this under administration, which is, as stated, a purchase of buses, primarily for two reasons. One, obviously, as it states, this is part of a grant that we applied and we were actually awarded through the ACOG organization. And because of that, we're actually able to save about $200,000, and that's for 10 buses. And so that being said, we needed to bring it, and we're working with a window of time. The second reason to bring this under administration, that this will be the first purchase of buses in September of last year, and going into 2018 this year, any purchase of buses that are model 2018 or newer are required to have seatbelts. And so this will be the first installment of buses that will be purchased that have seatbelts. And they do come with an additional cost of about $8,000 per bus. And so even though there's a savings from the grant of $200,000, there is that added cost. And again, because this is a change in the law that is now required, we wanted to bring that forth. There is some flexibility in the law that if as a district the financial impact of the $8,000 per bus creates a hardship, there's a procedure to go through which involves an open hearing or an open meeting when the hearing where that is discussed, and therefore you justify the reason for not buying them with seatbelts. So the ask for tonight is because again of the grant is to move forward. If you feel that you'd like to do that with the purchase of these 10 buses, with the additional cost of the seatbelts that will not be required by law.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was having a sidebar. I apologize.
That's all right. Some of your colleagues were part of a lengthier discussion that we had in policy regarding this topic.
All right. Ms. Freeman, as chairman of the policy committee, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
Thank you. As Mr. Galindo just said, we did have a lengthier discussion at policy committee. In your blue folders, I've asked too that, as with all legislation, we have policy that reflects the legislation. So you'll see in your blue folders, there's policy CNC legal that reflects what's in legislation and speaks to what Ray Galindo just spoke about regarding the purchasing of buses with seatbelts. With that, Ms. Chumley, I move that we approve the purchase of these school buses with seatbelts as described.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Reed?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that since I serve on the ACOG board as a representative of school districts for all of the 13 counties, actually, when I saw this coming forth through ACOG, I wanted to make sure that Northside got a grant if it was available, and checked with the district, and they had already been made aware of it. So I'm pleased that this comes, some of it from the federal government through ACOG as the distributor of that money. One of the things when we did have the discussion at the Policy and Intergovernmental Relations Committee was the concern for the fact that since we now have to have seat belts on all the seats, and so whereas currently we have many times 3 small children sitting on one seat. We can no longer do that. And the front 2 rows of seats, I think, will have little booster chairs with a harness type that comes down over them, which may mean in the future, if our buses cannot accommodate as many students, we may have to purchase more buses. So people just need to be aware that sometimes the things that are put into place just for safety measures, which cannot guarantee that these will actually make the children safer, because sometimes if there's an accident, the kids don't know how to get out of the seat belts or are trapped in them. But we're certainly going to follow the recommendations and try to do the best for our students that we possibly can. So with that, just to make sure that everybody understands what the situation really is, and I would second the motion.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we purchase the buses with the grant reimbursement. And Ms. Reed, I was going to thank you for making sure that that came to our staff's attention, that grant was out there. Is there any further discussion or comments? The only thing that I would like to add is that from a statistical standpoint, I think that the verdict is still out as to if seatbelts on buses actually will make kids safer. There really are not any studies that really state one way or the other that the seatbelts really will. I think that there is a consensus that buses are, I cannot find my words tonight, I apologize, that buses, the way that buses are built have safety features within the design of the school bus. And then the other thing that I would just like to point out is that I think if we looked at our historical data in Northside, that we have not had any students that have been seriously injured in a bus accident. And I think that we have a good safety record in transporting the number of kids that we do. I just want to say that because I think that there is 2 sides of this discussion that may come into future conversations depending upon what our legislature does. And particularly, I think that with Mr. Astellini and Dr. Wood's assistance, that financially the district is really strong right now, but I remember 2011 when the legislature had made some changes that did not keep us in the position that we're in right now. So I think that this may be something that we have future discussions on. And then the other piece is that by buying these buses with seatbelts now, that does not mean that future purchases will have that same requirement. So I think that this is probably something that is going to be a discussion that we will have going forward. I don't think this will be the end of this coming to the board or having this discussion. Saying that, Dr. Hall?
No, I think we can also kind of use this as a study period to say, is it helping kids with behavior to stay in their seats and not get up and move around as much? But I had an opportunity to ride in a new bus outside of when we were with Leadership TASB in El Paso, and it was interesting because the roads were nowhere near as nice as what we have here. We were going out to where the colonias are, and so the roads were really bumpy and, pothole-ish or whatever, but it kept us in our seats. So they may not be major accidents, but, any fast turn or avoiding of something or bad roads kept us very secure in our seats. So I was kind of impressed with them and feeling if we had the money, I would love that just as a precaution to be proactive with our kids. So, but money is an option. I mean, it doesn't grow on trees. But anyway, it was a good experience.
Very good. Thanks for that. And then the other piece, Mr. Galindo, was when we're talking about having to get students to get in a seatbelt and stay in a seatbelt, that changes some of the responsibility in relation to our bus drivers. And so I just wanted to make sure that, you know, and I'm sure you are already ahead of that, that we are looking at, you know, how that's going to work and what those requirements are going to be, and just, you know, including bus drivers in that conversation as we move forward with this as well.
Yes, ma'am. Pre and post inspections for bus drivers, the training, of course, with the children that need to have the seatbelts on, all of that has already begun, and obviously we'll carry it out on these new buses.
All right, thank you. So there's a motion and a second before the board. Any further conversation or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. The next item of business is the reorganization of board officers. In the past, we've done this as a block. We've done this as individual offices. If I could have the preference of the board, I'm just going to open it up. Are there any nominations for board president? Yes, ma'am.
So this time, am I on? This time last year, didn't we discuss whomever our officers stay for a couple years? Or has it already been 2 years? No.
No,
Okay.
this is
Just
first.
checking.
This is the first year. So
Okay.
I think that we have probably over the course of the last, in my mind, 24 years, we've probably seen
All different.
we've seen all different. So we've seen where the board officers do a 2-year term. We've seen where we have different officers in each position. I mean, it really is just the preference, the preference of the board, and it is the board's preference in relation to if a nomination is made, you know, in the block, or do we nominate for each individual office as well. So, Mr. Lopez.
I mean, I'm okay with, you know, either way. I don't know if you nominate in a block, you know, do the individuals have a chance to accept, or do they kind of have a chance to think about that? You know, I guess when nominating that, I mean, is there a chance where they can think about it, or?
Well,
That's why I'm thinking it's kind of like.
Right, it's tonight, so
Let's
let.
nominate somebody, and
Right.
then they say, oh, no, I don't.
Well, I think then what my recommendation would be, if the rest of the board is comfortable with this, is let's just take each individual office. And then if you are nominated for a position, and for whatever circumstances, it's not something that you would like to do at this time, then you just decline the nomination.
Okay.
Ms. Freeman?
Okay, so I will nominate Melissa Chumley as president.
Second.
Thank-
Third.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that support. Are there any other nominations for board president? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of Melissa Chumley, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you very much. I appreciate your support and your goodwill.
And you don't have to think about it.
And I don't have to think about it. Dr. Harrell?
Oh, I was going to nominate you for president.
Oh,
So
oh,
it's-
thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, I was gonna just say, let's keep everything as is,
Yeah.
but if you wanna follow the sequence on what the current vice
I'm
president
okay
is,
with
I lose
it.
track of who's doing. Oh, Carol, I'm sorry, Carol. I'm messing with you, Carol. Yeah, I'll nominate Dr. Hall. That's like, this is on the record, too.
Did you get that?
Dr. Hall as vice president.
Are there any other nominees for vice president? Seeing. It's been moved and seconded that we nominate Carol Harrell as board vice president. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Congratulations, Dr. Harrell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blunt.
Well, that's all right. Real quick story. We're on stage one time, and Bobby's introducing the trustees, and he turns and looks at me, and you can just tell in his face, he's going, I can't remember her name. And this is after 15 years together. That's all right, Bobby, I forgave you. Okay, so is there a nomination coming for the board for board secretary? Dr. Harrell.
So I will nominate, What's his name? Gerald Lopez as secretary.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for board secretary?
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we nominate Gerald Lopez as board secretary. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Lopez. All right, the next item of business on the agenda is the election of delegate and alternate to the 2018 Texas Association of School Boards. Are there any trustees that would like to serve as the delegate and alternate to the 2018 Texas Association of School Boards? Ms. Freeman, if you could just give us a brief synopsis of what that responsibility entails.
So I think most everybody here has been to the delegate assembly. It happens at the TASB convention. The delegate assembly meets by region prior or in caucus prior to the delegate assembly. I'm sorry, the delegates in each region meet as a region in a caucus prior to the delegate assembly at the TASB convention. And for the purpose of discussing issues relating to that particular region, as well as what is going to be, as well as the agenda in the delegate assembly. So each year we choose a delegate and an alternate. Both delegate and alternate will receive packets from TASB, which includes the agenda to the TASB delegate assembly. And both the delegate and the alternate are invited and encouraged to go to the caucus prior to the delegate assembly. But only one person can be on the floor during the assembly for voting purposes. The alternate may choose not to go. Perhaps there's something else that conflicts and they want to go someplace else, but I would encourage the alternate to actually stay. So it allows the delegate, if for some reason needs to leave the floor, then the alternate sits in the delegate's place.
And I think that the one time, Karen, is it the delegate also, if we have a TASB resolution that the resolution committee questions, that they would be our representative, and then also if there's anything that we need to speak to support from the floor?
Correct. Now that can happen, the resolutions can happen prior to speaking to that resolution can happen prior to the delegate assembly. And as a TASB director, I could also speak to that particular issue as well.
And you'll be there with us as well.
Right,
whoever.
but on the floor, you're right. If there's an issue that somebody chooses to speak to, it's the delegates that individually choose to get up in the mic and speak to that particular issue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't see any roaring.
I just have one question, okay?
Sure, certainly.
Usually, is it, you know when it's going to be Saturday afternoon again? I forgot to look at the schedule.
Yes.
Oh, it is again? Oh, okay.
One thing that has changed in the delegate assembly is there's been a speaker that's come. Now, at one time, Tom Sratcliffe spoke. Yeah, great. You were there at the time. So there's the last 2 years there's been a speaker. I don't know who this year's speaker is going to be. That allows us an extra, I think it's an extra half credit. I think you get a whole 1.5 credits. I can't remember what it is for doing that. So not as much credit, if you will, as if you participated in perhaps something else that was going on. But it's very interesting. It's the work of TASB, and especially at this time of the year, they vote on the resolutions and the priorities coming forward that help TASB staff move into as they go into the legislative session to guide TASB staff and what they advocate for us and what we advocate ourselves.
Thank you. Dr. Harrell.
So I'd like to nominate Joseph Medina to continue that role as a delegate to the TASB convention.
Joseph, do you accept? All right. It's been moved It's been moved and seconded that Joseph Medina, it will be our delegate to the 2018 Texas Association of School Boards. Is there anyone else that is interested in this position? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries. Joseph, thank you very much for volunteering to do that. Is there anyone that is interested in being the alternate?
I'll go ahead and, yeah, I'll go ahead and be an alternate.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Can we by acclamation accept Mr. Lopez as the alternate for the TASB convention? Seeing no objections, thank you very much, Mr. Lopez, for volunteering to do that. The next item of business on the agenda is the election of the board representative to the Northside Education Foundation. And I apologize, I can't remember who that is. I believe that's Joseph, isn't it?
Yeah. It's on the sheet, our packet.
Last page.
Oh, thank you very much, Linda. Joseph, did you want to continue to do that? Is there someone else that is interested in being the representative to the Northside Education Foundation? Ms. Reed?
I pushed that the last time around, so,
Put on the spot.
I would go ahead and be the would like to be the representative at NEF.
And this year, it's going, I'm trying to
The
think.
gala?
The galas, where's it gonna be? That's,
The Tobin. No,
At
at
the
the
Tobin.
Tobin Center, on the floor, at the
Yeah,
Tobin,
the
at
Tobin
the
Center.
Tobin Center.
so that,
Small venue.
really? Okay.
All right, so is anyone else interested in being the NEF representative? Shall we by acclamation accept Katie Reed as representative to NEF?
Second.
Seeing no objections? Katie, thank you very much for,
Yeah.
for offering.
Personally, I'm not happy about the selection of the site, so I would like to have them hear my opinion on that. It's too late to change it, but I know it will be there. But it'll be interesting to see.
It's a smaller
what
venue.
Well, and it's not in Northside, which is what we've always tried to have it in Northside. There are many venues in Northside.
Parking is a
An issue.
challenge.
Challenge.
But anyway, I'm sure you
They have a new parking garage.
and ballet.
Oh,
Okay,
I didn't realize that.
good.
Okay,
But
next
we'll
time.
see how big the Tobin's not that big a room,
It's small.
so we'll see how that all works out.
fun.
Board Representative to Bear County School Boards Coalition. The only thing I'd like to add to this, Bobby Blunt is the president of the Bear County School Board Coalition. Any trustee that wants to attend a Bear County School Board function is welcome to do that, but this is the person that serves as our liaison on the board. Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, and just, normally it's pretty consistent in terms of, going to meetings or whatever we may need in that regard. But this year, we've been asked, and I'm going to send out next week, to write a book, to rewrite the book we did or update the book. So we're going to really need active district representative this year, because we're going to need every single district to make sure the representative for their part of the book is updated and accurate. So it's going to take on that part of the role this year too. So whoever our Northside one, we're going to be very dependent on for that part of it.
What time were the meetings?
They
They
vary.
vary.
It's whenever we make them up. Yeah.
Most
Yeah,
of them,
about
most
quarterly.
of them are.
Quarterly. Oh, what time?
Most of
I'm sorry.
them are in
Evening.
the
I'm
eve-
sorry. They're in
are
evening.
in-
Yeah,
are in
I'm
the-
sorry.
most
Yeah,
of them
quarterly
are
in
in
the
the
evening. They're in evening
evenings.
time. 6:30. 6:30 is usually when we start the meetings. I'm sorry. You're right. Okay.
I found it beneficial to attend those just because you meet other trustees from other school districts. And the Christmas one where you have all the bling from other school districts is always fun. Ours is best.
And the good barbecue.
So, does anyone want to serve in that position?
I think I was it last year, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And, I'll be happy to serve on it again and be more active in this.
You're gonna have to be.
Yeah, I wasn't as active as I could, but I'll be happy to jump in again.
Well,
All
he's
right.
the official delegate, but.
Shall we by acclamation accept Gerald Lopez as our representative to the Bear County School Boards Coalition?
Yay.
All right. Seeing, I've gone blank. Seeing no objections, Mr. Lopez will be our representative to the Bexar County School Boards Coalition. All right, moving along. Representative to the National School Boards Association. Is there anyone that is interested in being our representative to the NSBA conference? And again, that is one of the organizations where any trustee that wants to attend the National School Board Association can. It's one of the ones that we have in our policy that trustees have travel for. However, this is the person that would be the one that would actually represent us. Is there anyone that's interested?
Karen, are you interested in doing that?
Karen, would you like to do that?
Yes, I would be happy to do that.
All right, thank you, Karen. Shall we
Okay.
by general acclamation accept Karen as our representative to the NSBA? There being no objections, Karen, thank you very much for serving in that position. All right, the next item of business is board committees. In your packet, there is a...
Did we do the representative to the TASB board?
Oh, actually, it's item H. So we're on G right now,
Okay.
which is the board
I was
committees.
looking at this,
No, that's all right. We've
well,
got,
it's listed here under the committees.
No.
The
D.
no,
directors.
that's underneath. Okay, so in our agenda, we did the National School Boards Association, then we have board committees, and then we have the Texas Association of School Boards. And you know what? Are we missing? Nope, you know what? I apologize. I skipped item D. I apologize. Thank you. Ms. Freeman, you currently serve as our representative on the TASB Board of Directors. I would like to nominate you to continue in that position.
Thank you.
Are
Thank you. Just a comment too. We need to look at this because it is a 3-year term, and we do this every year according to our board operating procedures, but this is the second year of the 3rd-year term that I serve. So according to TASB, I'm currently there. This board doesn't need to.
But we've always done it that way.
I know.
so, yeah.
Is that something that we should
I think we can talk
change
about it
change that?
I think we can talk about it at a later time.
Maybe at policy meeting.
Right.
Yeah. Because TASB, they got an issue with that. If somebody changed it, I don't know what they would do.
You're right.
Saying the board really decide, not
You're right.
TASB.
Yeah, it's good for continuity.
So just an item for discussion or policy some other time. But
All right, so shall we, by general acclamation, accept Karen as the representative to TASB Board of Directors?
Yes.
Seeing no objections, congratulations and thank you for continuing in that role, Karen.
thank you.
And I apologize, I skipped D. I kept looking at Linda and I'm thinking, where did it go? So thank you, Linda, for pointing that out. All right, we are on G, board committees. There in your packet, there is a form. If you would please complete what board committees you want to serve on. If you would like to be the chairman of that committee, please put an asterisk by your name and please give those to Linda. If you're not sure of what you want to do this evening, then if you will just call and let Linda know what committees you'd like to serve on. And again, if there's one that you would like to serve as the chairman of that committee, if you'll please indicate that. All right. Dr. Woods, I believe you have the next agenda item, which is the Texas Association of School Boards Advocacy Resolutions, and those are in our blue folder at our site.
Yes, ma'am. All trustees have a copy of the draft of the advocacy resolutions. Our process was to go back and look at what this board had approved most recently. And then we had a discussion in our Policy and Intergovernmental Relations Committee about some relatively minor changes to a couple of the advocacy resolutions. There are a couple of recommended deletions, and then there are 3 new resolutions proposed for the board's consideration as well. And the markup of that work is attached, or as you said, included in your blue folder.
Do any trustees have any questions or comments? I like that we have added some additional ones that we hadn't had before. on just one moment. Mr. Blunt? Thank you.
Yeah, just one question, Dr. Woods, on I should ask her, but the pre-K one, the full funding, full day support. So basically what we're saying now is we really believe the research does clearly show for the students identified, the ELL, economic disadvantage, or others at risk. The full day is truly advantageous. You know, before we're sort of neutral and half day, full day. But at least for those three, as a district, we feel that way, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need.
Absolutely.
Good, good. Thank you. And I'll say I fully support all the resolutions that we're putting forth. Okay, I'll make a motion.
Oh, wait.
Well, yeah, I do
Sorry.
that.
That's right, Dr. Harrell. Well, we can have a motion come
Yeah.
before it and then
Okay.
have discussion. But
Okay.
Dr. Harrell, if there's,
No, real quick, wherever it had, it was the third proposed resolution. I understand it says TASB shall support legislation that holds open enrollment charter schools to the same transparency. I would say if it could say charter schools and charter boards, just because I don't want the board. There's been some legislation that's come out that specifically does not have their boards held to the same transparency and the same expectations as traditional public ISDs, and I think it gets hidden sometime, and I think their boards need to be held accountable the same way we are. And Senate Bill 1566 is an example. They do not have to, we have to take that training, and they do not. So I think it would make it stand out, and I think they should be held accountable. So that's up to what the team feels. The other was about TASB shall support legislation that allows local districts to oversee the operation of all schools, including those labeled at low performing. I'm wondering if there's a stronger modification to that includes, and not that it would happen, but at the IR year, let's see, it changes to year 3. I still would want that to be a local decision as to what happens versus a commissioner calling us and saying, you will have a charter come take over a school, or you will have a partnership with Johns Hopkins or something like that. I think the whole IR process and soon to be the A through F process should be, it's up to the school district to take care of low performance, not. So that's just my feeling. So anyway.
I'm not
so I'm,
clear on that
Okay.
change.
So I'm not sure, I'm not clear on it either. I'm just saying that if we ever had a school that was an IR past 2 or 3, whatever it ends up in the coming out in the wash with A through F, that it's still under local control. So including those labeled low performing or improvement required, because it's not really low performing, it's improvement required, or D and F schools. Do we want to write it ahead? Oh, I'm sorry, it's on the second page, 3/4 of the way down. Because A through F will start for campuses year after next. This year it'll be for the district. So are we writing it just for this year, this coming year?
it's the 10th one.
So it would be improvement required. So if it's just for this year, then let me not borrow trouble.
No, well, the only comment I would make is I agree with your comment about changing the phrase that's in quotations to improvement required, as that's the language of our accountability system. So
We'll just leave it that alone.
I
And
actually
that says it all.
I think that improves it, actually. If folks are okay with that. I mean, the spirit is the same, but the language is more accurate.
So let me go back. So since we're amending this, then we really need to vote on the amendment, which is the changes on this. Or, Mr. Blunt, if you're gonna be making a motion, you can, you can move that, you know, you move adoption or approval of it with the changes that have been, but let me just make sure everybody recognizes. So the third resolution, we're gonna add charter schools and charter boards. Oh. Oh, yeah, well, we're not. I'm just wanting to make sure, Katie, that everybody understands what we're talking about. And so the fourth one is adding in charter boards, and then the 10th one was changing low performing to improvement required. So that's what is in the discussion that's before the board at this time. Ms. Reed, Ms. Freeman, is that all right?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yeah, the third one that we're talking about, number 3 here, about having it have transparency. I do not know that we can add the boards in there because most of those boards are not in the state of Texas, and they're from, people on those boards are from all across the country. So I don't know how in the world that would work.
They could,
really don't.
okay.
Dr. Harrell?
So let's use Senate Bill 1566, training as an example. They can certainly sit through 3 hours of that training and understand the Texas curriculum, which their school is now.
They're not required to, are they? Because they don't live in the state of Texas.
But they
But
still
they
have
serve on-
meetings. They still have virtual meetings. They're required to have meetings that are posted, just like, I mean, they have
They
open,
wouldn't be posted in Texas.
they're posted.
Most of their headquarters are like in Arizona.
Well, I don't know about most. I do know that the experiences I have had, they're posted publicly on the door. Well, all I know is Texas. So,
They're required to post a meeting at the site where they operate a campus.
I mean, it's virtual. It may be virtual, but they still have a meeting.
Okay, so any school that is operated by the charter has to have it posted.
In
It's
Texas.
in Texas.
And do we get minutes from that meeting?
Theoretically, you could.
But I don't think we do.
Well-
I'm not sure that this is doable, is what I'm trying to say, so.
My comment to that is, I agree with the addition, and that's on somebody else to make that doable. You know, that would be my comment is
We'll
that.
see what the conversation would come up when it comes up.
And
Okay, Bobby,
Just
just,
related
go
to
ahead.
that.
okay, but just 1 second, because Karen?
Different topics, so if
Okay.
Bobby would like to
Mr.
speak
Blunt?
to the same.
I was gonna make it more complicated. This doesn't say Texas either. It just says traditional public school. TAB, you could look at the different laws for the different states as part of this, so the
Sure.
legislation could.
It could.
That's a very valid point. Okay, Ms. Freeman?
So 2 comments. My suggestion just would be on the pre-K, the 2 resolutions relating to pre-K, that for me, it's not one or the other. For our school district, if the legislature actually provided funding for full-day operational pre-K, it would need to include the facilities. And so my thought would be to combine those 2. If we separate them, I just don't want them to get, for this school district, I don't want them to get separated.
Okay, so that's the
Makes sense.
4th one down on the 2nd page. Maybe next time we should number them.
Evidently.
Well, there's only 2 related to the pre-K, and they're right one after the other, so.
Okay, so we have,
Just to combine them.
oh, there we go, I'm sorry. TASB shall support legislation that provides for full-day operational funding for pre-K and support the pre-K facilities. So combined, so we're talking about combining Okay.
And then I just have another comment, Ms. Chumley, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding these resolutions, what happens is, to remind everybody, these resolutions get submitted to TASB, and TASB gets resolutions. So not every school district in the state submits resolutions, but many more have done so than in the past. And so they will TASB staff will attempt to combine some of these resolutions. So whatever we submit, they might call, they usually talk to the board president and perhaps the TASB director and the SUP regarding if it's okay to combine a resolution. So just so everybody knows, that may be what happens. So we could submit these, and if we all here agree that that would be okay for the board president, SUP to get together, and I would probably
And
be
TASB
invited
director, absolutely.
to comment as to whether it would be okay for us to combine our resolutions with another school district.
Okay. I just have a question on the last one on the first page. TASB shall support legislation that provides for popular election for all boards of public schools. I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure what we're asking in that.
That's a reaction to some discussions in Austin that really have to do with the whole philosophy around popularly elected boards running independent school districts. And this is a pushback against that conversation.
Okay, because you're talking about appointed boards. I understand. I'm sorry, I didn't understand what we were, because I thought we have that now, but,
And charters.
okay. All right, so that we're following proper parliamentary procedure, I need a motion. I need a motion moving that we amend the resolutions as discussed, and a second. Can anyone make that motion for me, please?
Ms. Chumley, if I may, I move that we, what did you just say? Amend the resolutions as discussed.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the resolutions as we have discussed. That would be number 3, we're adding and charter boards. Number 4, we're adding and charter boards. Number, number 8 and 9, we are combining that. Number 10, and we're taking off low performing and inserting improvement required. All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. We now have an amended advocacy resolutions, so we need a motion to come before the board to approve the 2018 NISD proposed advocacy, or 2018 NISD advocacy resolutions. Is there a motion to come before the board? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the amended 2018 NISD advocacy resolutions. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The next item in business on the agenda, just let me quickly go back. Karen, I believe that the draft, this was done in policy committee, if I'm not mistaken, the advocacy resolutions?
Yes.
Thank you for the work. I think that these are for the committee work, that I think these are really good resolutions and address some of the concerns that we have, and some that I think we are fearful will be in the next legislative session. So thank you and your committee members for the work that you did on that. Next item of business on the agenda is the future agenda items. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. In your blue folder, you've got, as you might expect this time of year, quite a number of pieces of paper. So As Mrs. Chumley indicated, you do have board committee sign-up sheet. If you'll convey that to Ms. McGee, we can get that to Mrs. Chumley and get that finalized for our coming school year. You've got a copy of future agenda items as they stand today. There's a graduation event sign-up sheet. There's 2 copies, one for you to keep for your own calendar and one for you to give Ms. McGee so that we know who's planning to be at which of our many graduations. You also have, importantly, your access and your parking passes for the Alamo Dome. Please set that in a special place. On the refrigerator, someplace that 3 weeks from now you'll know exactly where that is, because those are really hard to obtain. The city's quite particular about that. So if you will please put a star on that little manila envelope.
And don't lose it.
Yeah. Have I said that enough? Okay.
And when we're calling you because we don't have it at the gate.
I will, yeah.
Bring us yours.
Yeah. Softball playoffs, you've got that information. At this level of the playoffs, they don't allow athletic passes, so if you plan to attend, please let Linda know so that we can get you tickets. And then you've got a number of invitations in your packet as well. And that's it, Ms. Chumley.
All right, and then I have a couple of items that I need to ask your pleasure on, and that is the last board meeting, and thank you, Dr. Harrell, for chairing the board meeting. I know that the board discussed dates for possible board retreat, and we weren't very successful. And so what I'd like to talk to y'all about is, instead of using a Saturday, if we were to do a 5 to 8 in the evening during the week, I think we may be more successful, because Saturday is just really, we're going to be in August doing our board retreat. And I think that we have, we've got quite an agenda for the board retreat that I think that we would be better served to have a discussion earlier than later. So would that be something that the board would be willing to consider? Instead of doing a Saturday, let's look at a 5 to 8 on an evening, a weekday evening. You okay with that, Bobby?
Yeah.
That, Katie? Carol?
Yep.
Okay, so the next item then is, in June, we have the week of June 11th, we have graduations in SLI that weekend. Then we have the Board 1560 training on June 19th at 5 o'clock, right? 5 to 8. So really, and then we have the next week, or we have...
We have a board meeting on the 26th.
We have a board meeting on the 26th, and then that pushes us into 4th of July week, where we don't have a superintendent, because he better be taking vacation. So we either have a choice. We either do it the same week that we have a board meeting, which is that last week in June, or we push to the second week in July. Is anyone on vacation the second week in July? Okay, so that pushes us to the third week of July. Is everybody here the third week of July?
I'm not here on the 18th of July, but that's it.
So, Monday, Tuesday?
All right, so we have a choice. Do we want to do it a Wednesday, Thursday, the last week in June? Or do we want to push to the Monday, Tuesday of the third week in July?
Which is the 16th and 17th.
16th and 17th.
No, I think we're just looking at options.
Right now, we're just looking at options one. Let's see what we get through on our agenda, and if we need a second night, we'll have to schedule it. But let's start with our first night. So is there a preference? First off, everybody check the week of June 26th, so it would be 27th or 28th.
I can do 27.
I'm hearing June 27th as a possibility, which would be, is that the Wednesday? Okay,
I'm gone to Leadership TASB.
On that day?
Yeah,
On-
in Fort Worth
okay, on the 27th, you're gone?
to the 30th.
What about
Okay.
the 26th? Did we
How
say-
about
26th is a
Monday?
board meeting.
Regular board meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How about
25th.
the 25th?
Be out of town.
You're out of
Yeah.
town.
Yeah, yeah, so-
Okay, all right. This is always, I really thought that we would have an easier time of it with using the weekdays.
Let's go back to that July week.
So let's go back.
June were you talking about earlier? The week of the 18th?
No.
Because I could do the 21st or the 22nd. 20th or 21st.
We've ruled this out.
Okay, or we have a choice. What about June 21st? Which
That's-
is the Thursday,
That's very close to the 1566.
right. I mean, we have our 1566 Tuesday, the 19th. Do we want to then do our board retreat June 21st?
We have a finance committee meeting on that day too?
On the 19th.
On the 19th, we have a finance.
Suggest we go back to the 16th, 17th of July.
Why don't,
And
okay,
You're saying the 21st?
Yeah.
I'm okay.
will that,
Really close on the heels of 1566.
that's why I was in, will that give staff enough time
It's a week right after graduation.
to be
Right
able
after
to?
strategic planning.
That's tough.
Okay, so then let's push back to the week of July 15th.
July 15th.
16th or
July.
17th.
Yeah, July, so it'd be 16th or 17th?
I'm good
Either
way.
one.
16th, 17th?
I'm good either way.
Joseph, 16th, 17th?
I'm good.
You don't get home till the 17th, Katie?
It should be
All right,
fine.
and then the 18th, we lost someone?
Me.
We lost Carol. Okay,
You know what, just,
how about, let's
no,
push
it's
to, let's
driving
push,
from
let's,
Austin, but it's like 5.
let's push to the next week.
Or
All right.
the 19th?
All right, how about the 19th? What about the 19th?
Take vacation there, like a real vacation.
You're out of
Just have
town.
it out there.
Yeah,
Okay.
stay busy.
And y'all are all getting an invitation to an event on the 20th. So,
So the 19th is fine for me.
19th?
I have a TAS,
Don't you have
TASB.
TASB board meeting is on the 19th.
yeah,
No,
and that's,
TASB was the end of June.
Well, I have a board meeting.
Oh, Karen.
yeah, Karen, and
Oh,
I need to prepare for the 20th, actually, on the 19th.
So if you, I'll
So
just
we're,
drive.
so we're the week of July, the next week, July 20,
Just do the 18th,
Third.
and I'll just, I can't leave early, but I'll come in a
Out of
little
town
late.
on the 18th.
the
Okay, you're out
23rd
of
is
town.
fine.
18th is not a choice.
Okay.
all right.
23rd is fine.
How about Monday, the 23rd? July 23rd.
Okay, we have a board meeting the 24th, but that's okay.
So,
We're good.
All right, Monday, the 23rd.
23rd?
Is everybody available on Monday, the 23rd?
Going once,
We will be.
going twice.
From 5 to 8 on Monday, the 23rd. I think we have a date. All right, so that will give you enough time?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
plenty.
All right, so at this point, we are moving into closed session. Thank all of you that have stayed with us through this. The Board of Trustees on May 22nd, beginning at 8:45, will convene in closed meeting in accordance with Texas Government Codes Sections 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. The Board of Trustees on May 22nd, beginning at 9:26, will convene an open meeting. Ms. Freeman?
I move to approve the administrative appointments as discussed in executive session.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the administrative appointments as discussed in closed session. Is there any discussion or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. Next item of business, Mr. Lopez?
I move to authorize council and the superintendent to proceed as discussed in closed session regarding the matter styled Guillermo Martinez versus Northside ISD cause number 2018C as in cat, V as in Victor, 01763 in the county court at law number 3, Bexar County, Texas.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider, that we take action regarding the pending litigation as in the motion that was presented. Is there any discussion or comment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries. There being no further business come before the board ends at meeting at 9:28 p.m.